Gooey butter cake has been around since the 1930s, but if you're a child like me of the 80s, then you likely remember these decadent treats everywhere. They are so easy to make, and since they are served at room temperature, many of us remember eating them at family gatherings, church potlucks, or an indulgent weekend treat. All you really need is a box of cake mix along with butter, cream cheese, powdered sugar, and eggs. That's it. Put these ingredients together and you get a dense cake layer topped with a custard-y, gooey, sweet cream cheese layer. As much as I love a traditional gooey cake, I put a twist on this popular sweet treat, turning it into a gooey almond butter cake. Let's check it out. For the ingredients, you'll need a box of yellow cake mix, butter, eggs, cream cheese, powdered sugar, vanilla, and almond extracts, along with optional sliced almonds for the topping. Let's begin by preheating the oven to 350 degrees. And you're going to need a 9 by 13 inch baking dish, which is a 3-quart. And I like to use parchment paper because it keeps the pan clean and it makes the gooey bars easy to remove. And then I just trim the corners down all the way to where they meet the pan. And this way the paper sits flush in the pan. And you can trim off the internal flaps. And set this aside. You can't just eliminate the paper and just grease the pan. We're gonna add the contents of a box of yellow cake mix, 1 stick, which is 113 grams of softened butter. You can always stick it in the microwave for a few seconds until it's soft. It needs to be soft to make it more easily to stir together. We're gonna add 1 large egg right into the bowl. You don't need to beat it. 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Half of a teaspoon of almond extract. This is where the almond flavor goes in. And then you just want to stir this all together until it's combined. Use a stiffer spoon. I might move to that as I am mixing this up. You can use a stand mixer to make it a little bit easier if you have one. My mom always made this by hand in a bowl, so I just tend to follow the baking techniques of my mom and my grandma's. Okay, so you can see it's sort of a dry mess here. So then take your paper lined or greased pan. We're just going to press the mixture in the pan to where it's nice and dense and it's a cohesive, even layer. And I just use my fingers for that. I just added a little bit of cooking spray to my hands to make it a little easier to press this into the pan. You could always use a spatula too and press it down. That'll smooth it out. So the cake layer is now pressed in the pan. It looks very dense. So it's time to make the top gooey custard layer. So in the same bowl that we used to mix the cake layer, we're gonna add 226 grams or 8 ounces of cream cheese. Make sure it's soft. And we're gonna beat the cream cheese with an electric mixer until smooth. Then we're gonna add in 2 large eggs. You don't have to beat them. You can just put them one at a time into the bowl. Okay, that's my second one. And a teaspoon of almond extract. And then beat again until smooth. If you have a few lumps of cream cheese in there, don't worry about it because it's gonna smooth out when we add our powdered sugar. Now we add the powdered sugar. This recipe uses 4 cups, which is a pound, also 453 grams of powdered sugar. So we're just gonna pour all of it in there. And then we're gonna give it another stir or blend until it's nice and smooth. Start on low so your powdered sugar doesn't fly out. And you can increase the speed as it mixes in. You can see that this is a very runny mixture. It looks like a custard. It's nice and yellow with the eggs. All right, now it's time to pour the cream cheese layer, custard layer over the cake layer. And since it is pourable, just let it go like this. And then just smooth out the top. You want to make sure that the cream cheese layer, custard layer goes all the way to the edge. We want to be able to see the two layers when it's baked and when we cut into it. So we're creating almond layers in this dish. So we have a little bit of almond extract in the cake. We have a little bit of almond extract in the gooey layer. And now we're gonna top with some sliced almond, and we're just gonna scatter it all over the top. It is going to do some sinking, but that gives it, the top layer a little bit of crunch, because this sort of recipe is pretty, sort of a one note in the sense of texture. I mean, you do have the creamy layer, you do have the cake layer, but some people really like to have a little crunch layer. So that's what the almonds do, is they give it the flavor. It hits the almond flavor and they add the crunch. I want to make sure that they're visible and that you get a nice little crunch in every bite. Our gooey almond butter cake is ready for the oven. So we're going to place it in the oven and bake for 40 minutes. The top should be golden brown and it should create a crust. Gooey almond butter cake is out of the oven. It has risen quite a bit because of that custardy top layer with the eggs. And it's nice and golden brown and crusty. So we're going to allow the cake to cool for 2 to 3 hours completely, since it's going to have a runny top. We want to be able to cut into it smoothly and lift it out of the pan. And then we'll add a topping of powdered sugar and dig in. The cake has cooled, and as you can tell, the center has fallen a little bit, but that's typical, like a souffle or a custard. So now we could dust it with some powdered sugar to add visual texture, a little bit more sweetness, and just make it pretty. You really want to wait till the cake cools before you add powdered sugar, because if it's too warm, the powdered sugar is going to melt. And we're just doing a little dusting here. And if you do accidentally put it on too warm, then when you go to serve it, you can always add a little bit more. A little extra sugar is not going to hurt. And now it's dusted. So the reason I like to put the paper in the pan is because I can lift it out just like that. And the paper comes right off. Pretty simple. And now we can cut into slices, put it on a serving plate, and serve. You should easily be able to get 12 bars out of this. So we're talking, you would cut about 4 rows down and then 3 across, and that would give you a nice square. So let's go ahead and cut 1 row. Ooh, look at that goo on the knife. And then we'll cut 1, 2, and 3. Get an edge there. Okay. The almonds and powdered sugar on top add the visual texture. So it does have a crunchy layer, and you can tell because when I cut, there's a little bit of crust that cracked, so it's not an even cut at the very, very top. But it's still very smooth in the center. It's very sticky from where the custard is. And while the cake is gooey, you can see it's a bit sticky from the custard. But since it's cooled, the gooey layer doesn't ooze off the cake. I can hold this. It's like a handheld dessert. And while the cake is a bit dense, it does hold the topping very well. So you can imagine serving this at a gathering, picnic, anywhere. And you can cut these, slice them, put them on a serving plate. Your guests can just pick them up and eat it like this. So although it's a gooey cake, it's going to be nice and soft. It's not going to be hard to hold in your hand. Now for a bite. Ooh, it just pulls away from the cake. I love that extra crunchy layer on the top from the crust of the cream cheese, but the almonds are so thin, you don't necessarily get a strong almond flavor. The almond flavor is enhanced. Then you've got that nice little bit of crunch. It's like a crust crunch. It's not a big whole almond crunch. The cream cheese layer is not overly cheesy, but very creamy. The eggs contribute to the light custardy texture. The cake layer is a bit chewy instead of light and airy, but I love the chewiness. The textures work really well together. I love the additional almond flavoring. It just adds a touch of elegance to a traditional dessert. This is such an indulgent, creamy, easy dessert to make for your family or any gathering. During the holidays, you can add a teaspoon of holiday spice like pumpkin pie, apple pie, or gingerbread, or cinnamon to the cake layer for that extra holiday punch. If you like gooey cake, consider giving this version a try. The almond flavoring and crunch add a nice variation. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. Until next time, make a quick, indulgent gooey almond butter cake and go bake the world.